Hello, this is High Priestess Jamila, and I wanted to come and give my 2 cents on psychic vampirism. I also want to speak about the distinction between a psychic vampire and a witch. There are some people that feel that they are the same. And I have to say that I do not agree with this. And part of the reason why is because it depends on what type of psychic vampirism that we're talking about, because there's many different types. The worst psychic vampire is someone that drains a person of their energy. And we're talking about energy. They may drain someone even without speaking to them, or there are a lot of psychic vampires that have began to practice certain meditations to feed off of individuals. Now, psychic vampirism definitely does come from not only the third eye, but I feel like it mainly is what I feel that it is I feel that it is parasites. I feel like, first of all, especially when it comes to the knowledge that I get from Lilith, who it is well known that Lilith is supposed to be the queen of vampires, and she totally disagrees with this. Lilith really only identifies as a witch. She does not identify as a psychic vampire. She does, however, identify with being a deity that can consume someone, or someone that can consume vampires. So that is something to where it is a misconception, and I think that it depends on what your relationship is with Lilith and what your situation is. So a witch is someone that possesses supernatural connections and powers, whether or not they are earthly powers, cosmic powers. I personally feel that every witch has the ability to tap into the cosmos, all of us, okay? But I think that it depends on how the witch wants to do her practice or practice her craft. A witch is very different from a psychic vampire, and the reason why is because witches mainly use these unseen forces to manifest a reality, to manifest an outcome, okay? Which to me is a lot more complicated than psychic vampirism. Psychic vampirism is more like, to me, the way that I describe it is a primal instinct that is based upon some kind of need to survive. In particular, during some kind of emergency and urgency. There are some people that are trying to practice psychic vampirism and rest solely on that. I do not agree with doing that. I think that it does and has proven to have an opposite effect to the mental, spiritual, and physical well-being of the person. From what Lilith has explained to me is that the actual spiritual process of so-called psychic vampirism is a skill that all witches have, which is why we get confused between the two all the time. Witches have often found themselves in battle with psychic vampires. And the reason why witches are keen and have an understanding of psychic vampires is because we know how to take back our energy. Yes, there is a thing about energy, as well as if you go into necromancy, then there's certain spirits. That is typically the relationship that a witch has with psychic vampirism, is reclaiming their energy. Now, there are some witches that can use psychic vampirism as a tactic of revenge. This is something that I definitely do agree with, because I believe that it's not just about taking from someone, but sometimes it's about just doing harm. So if a witch felt like someone did harm to her, she could definitely use psychic vampirism as one of the tactics of getting back at that person and teaching them a lesson for what they did to her or him. As far as psychic vampirism being something that is a normal practice of a witch, no. It's not. It is not a normal practice. A psychic vampire is going to drain you of emotional energy. And so psychic vampirism is actually something that is supposed to be kind of healing to people, because psychic vampires, traditionally, what they will do is they will take away a person's pain, right? So it's almost like a form of empathism, a little bit. When someone is dealing with too much or a lot of burden, a psychic vampire or psychic vampirism can be used to pull that energy out of a person that is placing too much burden on them. The problem with this is that when you have that kind of knowledge and power, it can be corrupted. So what is happening is that people that use psychic vampirism as a practice are constantly trying to create a situation where a person feels some type of pain, which is why they start a bunch of drama, which is why they do a lot of name calling, which is why they can be very, very verbally abusive and emotionally abusive. When it comes to psychic vampirism, it's something that a person should never become codependent on, because what ends up happening is that you end up becoming this social leper that kind of goes around purposely triggering people and messing up people's day just so that you can feed off of them. When in reality, you could have fed off of the sun. You could have fed off of the air. You could have fed off of the elements. You could have fed off of a lot of different things. And then also, when we think about it, on this abundant earth, all of us, well, hopefully all of us, have running tap water. Water is one of the most abundant elements that is on this planet, that of which can be manifested from. And the funny thing about it is that psychic vampires are typically very, very thirsty, such as like a vampire. So I think that if you become way too codependent on using psychic vampirism as a practice, then what ends up happening is that you kind of change the way your body is absorbing nutrients, for example, from the sun, for example, from water, for example, from the earth. Your body starts to change And then all of a sudden, the energy or the essence or the magical properties that you may be able to get from drinking a cup of coffee or drinking a cup of tea or even just a plain old cup of water changes. And so you're not able to really absorb it. One of my theories is that if someone is a chronic psychic vampire, that I feel that this is being caused by parasites. Okay, so I think that there are in some cases where it's not what we want to call vampirism at all. It's more so parasitic. This is very, very different. When you look at a parasite is something that will run across an organism or a person or a host, attach itself to that person or the host, and just continuously feed. This feeding can occur either all day long or either at different times of the day or night. A person that is filled with parasites is constantly trying to feed off of a host. And it's kind of very obvious when they do it, because what you'll find is a stalker. I believe that stalkers do have these parasites. This is something that I have had life experience with. And just to go over this story, there was a time when I dealt with parasitic people who thought that they were vampiric, but it was actually very parasitic, because it was all day. It was, images and visions of these people that were coming into my focus a lot. And they were trying to attempt to feed. When I realized that I needed to cleanse myself of parasites and finish cleansing myself, was when I found myself wanting to investigate certain situations with people. And I felt like I needed, or I had some kind of need to chase after, right? So chasing something is not necessarily the same thing as bringing it towards you. So when it comes to being a witch or someone that possesses supernatural powers, we typically, especially if you are someone that has done money manifestation or has moved things towards you, you may have a gift that we call telekinesis. One thing that the spiritual community has found is that the gift of telekinesis is absolutely connected to the earth in some kind of magnetic field, and it's connected to spirits. So this is not an energy, okay? Telekinesis, having the gift of telekinesis, having any spiritual gift, is not just energy. People are trying to look at everything as energy, but a lot of the times someone else's gifts are connected to their spirits. So this is the reason why so many people who are trying to practice psychic vampirism on witches are running into a lot of problems and roadblocks that they will continue to run into, because there are certain spirits that are going to appear. For example, Lilith, Hecate, even Santa Muerta, even some of the spirits of the Goetia, even Pazuzu is going to appear eventually when someone is trying to deplete a person of their energy. This is when the witch is going to be ushered in to the underworld for that protection. these certain spirits, in order to protect and to preserve the witch's life and her life force, they are going to say something eventually. They're going to step forward. There's going to be some kind of what they call download, and the witch is going to get that knowledge and that wisdom and make that connection. Now, there are some witches that refuse to do it, but until you've been a witch that is being fed on by hundreds of vampires, you will never understand unless you're experiencing that. So there is a huge difference between a witch and a psychic vampire. They are not the same. Number one, especially if you come to a witch that does practices to where they do work for people. Witches, when we ask for payment for doing the work, that is not psychic vampirism. That is asking to be paid for your time and your energy that you put into that work for that person. There is nobody in this world that works for free except for maybe slaves. And the last time I checked, slavery is illegal across the board, in particular in the Americas. Whereas versus a psychic vampire, they may offer free work to a person, which is where you need to be very concerned. I have noticed that there are a few of my clients throughout the years who have came across people who have offered them free work, and they took it thinking that I would not see it, and I am a psychic witch, and only to have that person actually be a psychic vampire that has begun to feed on me through them. This is something that I can see very clearly, and this is something that most witches, as well as a lot of our spirits and deities like Hecate, Lilith, and Santa Muerta, Caradwin, the Baba Yaga, they are not going to tolerate that. The knowledge and understanding as a witch is very simple. There are some witches, they only work with the moon, and I say that loosely for lack of better words, okay? Because the moon is very powerful. But then again, there are some witches that work with the moon and the sun and Saturn, and they make contact with the universe. Some even go far beyond the solar system to work with the cosmos. Vampirism is something that is very basic, whereas when you look at witchcraft, it's much more complete. And then it's also a lot more reliable. Because you're dealing with so much power and energy. But then again, there's a lot of people that really do have a limited belief system surrounding even our existence. So they don't see what a lot of us witches see. They only see what they want to see. They can't see beyond that veil. There are a lot of people who have it really confused, and I wanted to come and get some clarity on that. At the end of the day, in my humble opinion, witchcraft is always going to trump psychic vampirism. Because every single system supports it. Every single god, every single deity supports witchcraft versus psychic vampirism. is highly frowned upon, not only because of the negative effects that it has on the person that is the host who is being torn down essentially for no purpose, because psychic vampirism to sustain the life force of another person does not actually work. In fact, what it ends up doing essentially is hurting the person that is afflicted with these types of parasites. And those are things that, and I'm talking about parasites within the body, parasites within the spiritual body. I'm not talking about the psychic vampire. I'm talking about the actual affliction that even makes psychic vampirism something that people would even try to do. As a witch, what I want to say to end this conversation is that you need to seek what's in nature, would be my advice. Seek nature and you will find answers. And that's not just the woods or the lakes or the rivers, but nature is also above us. When you seek nature, there's a lot of healing and there's a lot of energy and there's a lot of treasures when you seek nature. When you seek the things that you want in nature personally for your own person, or either a client that you may be helping, or either your family and loved ones. When you seek it, you'll find it. And a lot of the times, either you can see it or you can't see it. The only way we can see air is by when it blows through the trees, or we can feel it. But there's so much abundance around us that you should never limit yourself just to psychic vampirism. In fact, if it's something that you have picked up as a habit, it is a bad habit that is being encouraged to break. The reason why is because people have every right to protect their energy. For example, if it's a situation that may be difficult, if it's a situation where you may be working out an issue with your mate or either your family and the emotions are very high, those are energies that still belong to that person that are meant to be transmuted. It will always be highly frowned upon for a psychic vampire to be causing those problems, manipulating those problems, and then saying, well, they don't need that. I personally, for one, even if it's a highly emotional situation, I want all of my energy because the energy is coming from me. I'm not going to sit here and ever go to a psychic vampire and say, please take my energy. In fact, I don't, as a witch that does work for people, I don't work that way. If it's energy that is foreign to you or energy that you're not familiar with, then that energy and bad spirit and or bad spirits can be banished. And they should be, because they don't belong to you. However, if it's your own energy, it's meant for it to be transmuted, because the gift and the reward and the blessing is always going to be in that transmutation, especially when you're dealing with negative memories of childhood, of abuse, of trauma, of any difficult situation ranging from 0 to 100. Okay. So that energy is your energy alone. I don't have the right, and neither does anybody else have the right, to stand by and pull that energy into themselves, because at the end of the day, they are still stealing and taking that energy and life force that you are supposed to have for yourself. If you are having issues with psychic vampires, it is something that you really want to get help with. You don't want to wait a year. You don't want to wait 2 years. You don't want to wait 3 years. You want to handle that situation expeditiously. And you want to take your energy and your power back. Absolutely. You should. And nobody can deny you of that. That's something that psychic vampires hate a lot. They don't want you to take your life force back. They don't. And these days, there are people that are trying to literally take all of your chakras and trade them with you, which is even worse. So if you are having this issue, you guys are definitely welcome to contact me at divineservicesapothecary.com. And I would say get some help immediately and try to do the bare minimum. Psychic vampirism has gotten so bad that I do not touch people spiritually unless it is a Sabbath. I do not touch people spiritually for less than $500 these days because it's gotten so bad and the brevity has reached below sub-zero at this point. That's pretty much it. If you have any questions or you need me to read your chakras to tell you what is going on, contact me 770-686-7461. Blessings to you. Bye-bye.